What if humans could regenerate limbs like lizards? Imagine this for a moment. You're walking through a dense forest, the smell of damp earth in the air and sunlight filtering through the leaves above. A branch snaps under your foot, and as you glance down, you notice a lizard scurrying away. Something catches your eye, its tail is still moving, but the lizard is already gone. Effortlessly, it left a part of itself behind to survive. Now, picture a world where this ability isn't exclusive to lizards, but belongs to us, humans. What if losing an arm wasn't the end, but the beginning of something new? Imagine that the pain of amputation didn't mean a permanent goodbye, but just a temporary pause until the body rebuilt itself. Think of a heart that suffered a heart attack repairing itself, like a building whose cracks disappear with a fresh coat of paint. Picture a fractured spine realigning, vertebra by vertebra, until the pain and paralysis become distant memories. This isn't science fiction. It's a glimpse of a possibility that nature itself has already mastered, and one that perhaps could one day be within our reach. Now stop and think. What would it really be like to live in such a world? A world where human fragility, the very thing that defines us, limits us, but also connects us, was challenged by something extraordinary. What would we do with that power? Imagine the questions that would arise. Would humanity remain the same? Or would we become something entirely new, something we can't even recognize today? Let's embark on a journey. Let's explore what happens when science and philosophy intertwine, when the impossible starts to seem inevitable. We'll discover how this ability works in nature and what it would take to bring it to humans. And more importantly, we'll dive deep into the implications. The medical, social, and ethical consequences of a world where losing parts of yourself wouldn't be the end, but just a fresh start. Ready to step into this world? Because once you start imagining the possibilities, there's no turning back. So what do we know about regeneration? Nature is an engineer of wonders, and regeneration is one of its most fascinating creations. In a world where we humans face the pain and permanence of loss, some living beings defy this logic with mastery. Think of starfish, which regenerate entire arms. Axolotls, the magic salamanders, which can even recreate parts of their hearts. Or lizards, which shed their tails like disposable pieces of a living puzzle. What do they have that we don't? Why, when we lose a part of our body, can we only close the wound while they rebuild it from scratch? The answer lies in cells, more specifically, stem cells. The moment a lizard loses its tail, what happens is nothing short of a perfectly synchronized biological concert. An army of stem cells springs into action, organizing themselves like specialized workers. Each cell has a destiny. Some form muscles, others recreate nerves, and even delicate blood vessels are rebuilt. All of this happens with impressive precision, as if the lizard carries within itself the perfect assembly manual for every part of its body. But why don't we, with all our complexity, have this ability? The truth is, humans also possess stem cells. They're like rough diamonds hidden within us, capable of forming different types of tissues. They heal cuts, regenerate small parts of the liver, and rebuild our skin every day. However, our regenerative potential is limited. It's like we carry a powerful engine, but without the right fuel to make it run at its full capacity. Why did evolution give us this tool but at the same time deprive us of fully using it? One theory is that regeneration demands extreme energy and resources, something our bodies, focused on rapid survival, can't afford. Still, science is advancing at an incredible pace. Researchers worldwide are studying the PAX7 gene, PNAS 2017, Nature 2018, a crucial element in the muscle regeneration mechanism in animals like axolotls, IJDB 2024. They're also fascinated by the axolotl MDI biological laboratory, Max Planck Gesellschaft, whose ability to regenerate even complex tissues defies the limits of what we thought possible. There's an intriguing and unsettling parallel. Cancer cells, like regenerative ones, grow rapidly. The difference? Cancer is chaotic and disordered growth, while regeneration is a spectacle of organization. What if we could tame that chaos, transforming cancer's destructive power into a restorative one? But here's the big question. Can we activate this regenerative potential in ourselves without unexpected consequences? Regeneration, contrary to what it seems, isn't just about growing body parts. It's about challenging the fundamental rules of what it means to be human. If we one day unlock this power, what else in our biology will be transformed? And even more importantly, will we be ready to handle it? Nature holds its answers, and while scientists work to decipher them, we can only wonder, how far can we go without losing the essence of who we are? Now imagine for a moment that what seemed impossible begins to transform into a real possibility. Science is at the forefront of this bold journey, unraveling the secrets of regeneration cell by cell, gene by gene. And what it's discovering is as fascinating as it is challenging. There are genes like PAX7, known for their role in regenerating muscles in some animals, that could potentially be activated in humans. These genes, almost like forgotten switches on a complex panel, are there, dormant, waiting for someone to figure out how to turn them on. But what would happen if we finally found the right button? Scientists are also studying the behavior of pluripotent stem cells, those capable of transforming into any tissue in the body. Imagine these cells as infinitely versatile Lego bricks, ready to mold themselves into muscles, nerves, or skin, depending on the instructions received. However, unlocking this power isn't simple. How do we ensure these cells follow the correct instructions and rebuild what's been lost, instead of creating something chaotic or even dangerous like a tumor? Science walks a tightrope between cure and risk, and this only increases the suspense surrounding what we can achieve. And there's another unexpected source of inspiration: cancer. This may sound contradictory, but listen closely. Cancer is, in essence, rampant cell growth, regeneration gone wild. If we can understand how cancer manipulates cells to grow so rapidly, nature, Mayo Clinic, we might learn how to channel that energy in an organized way for beneficial purposes. What if we could transform something destructive into something restorative? The same mechanism that causes disease today could be used to rebuild organs, limbs, and even entire tissues. It sounds like science fiction, but it's exactly the kind of reality science is beginning to explore. The challenges, of course, are immense. Modifying our genes to activate regenerative capabilities isn't like flipping a switch. It's rewriting the instruction manual of the human body. Scientists face frighteningly complex questions. How do we ensure regeneration occurs only when needed? How do we prevent it from interfering with natural processes like aging? And above all, how do we deal with the potential side effects of playing with something as fundamental as our biology? Each answer we find seems to open a new door, full of possibilities, but also uncertainties. But here's the most exciting part. Despite the obstacles, science has never been closer. With advancements like CRISPR, gene editing, and tissue engineering, we've already achieved feats that seemed impossible just a decade ago. We're talking about creating organs in the lab, regenerating small parts of the heart, and even stimulating the healing of spinal cord injuries. Each discovery is a piece of a puzzle that, when complete, could redefine what it means to be human. And if we get there, will we be ready to accept the impact of this transformation? The future of regeneration isn't just a distant dream. It's a living, pulsating science, ready to reshape the world. A new body, a new society. Imagine waking up in a world where losing a leg, an arm, or even a vital organ is no longer a permanent tragedy, but just a temporary setback. In this future, a worker who loses a hand in an accident goes home with hope, knowing that in a few months, their hand will be back. What would this do to our perception of risk and fragility? If our bodies were no longer so vulnerable, how would this shape the way we behave, live, and even relate to one another? Would we become bolder, more reckless, or perhaps more resilient? Professions that are currently seen as extremely dangerous could turn into everyday occupations. Firefighters would rush into burning buildings without hesitation, knowing that any injury could be repaired. Surgeons would tackle risky procedures without fear of causing irreversible damage to their patients. Even sports would change completely. Imagine athletes pushing the limits of the human body without the fear of permanent injuries. The Olympics could become a showcase of unimaginable physical feats. But where would we draw the line? How far would we push our bodies, knowing they can regenerate? On the flip side, think about the social implications. In a world where everyone can regenerate limbs, prosthetics might become a thing of the past. This would be a significant advancement for many, but what about the industries that rely on this technology? And what about the people who have crafted their identities around their prosthetics, not as a limitation, but as a unique expression of who they are? In a society where regeneration is possible, could physical perfection become a new oppressive standard? And what about those who, for some reason, can't access this technology? Would we create an even greater divide between the rich and the poor? Between those who have and those who don't? These questions open a dialogue about not just the future of medicine, but the future of humanity itself. As we stand on the brink of potentially transformative breakthroughs, we must consider the ethical, social, and cultural ramifications. How do we ensure that advancements in regenerative medicine serve to unite and uplift society, rather than create new hierarchies and inequalities? The journey ahead is not just about the science of regeneration. It's also about the collective values we choose to embrace as we step into this new era. But the questions go beyond inequality. There's a psychological depth to this process that we cannot ignore. The loss of a body part or the scar from an injury often shapes who we are. They teach us resilience, gratitude, and connect us to our humanity. Without the permanence of these marks, without the weight of loss, would we lose something essential about what it means to live and feel? Or would we find new meanings, new ways of understanding life, now free from physical limitations? Would we be happier? Or simply more insensitive to adversity? And finally, there's the ethical question. In a world where we can regenerate body parts, how far would we be willing to go? Would we start to enhance our bodies as if they were machines? Would we create versions of ourselves that are stronger, faster, more resilient? If so, what would happen to the idea of humanity? Regenerating a lost arm is one thing. Choosing to amputate it to replace it with something better is an entirely different matter. Would we be creating a more just and compassionate world? Or would we open the doors to a new type of competition where human value is measured by physical enhancements? This future, both liberating and unsettling, forces us to reflect on who we are and who we want to become. It's not just about a new body, it's about a new society, a new way of thinking, living, and even loving. What would we gain? What would we lose? Perhaps the real question isn't what we can do with this ability, but whether we are prepared to accept the changes it might bring to our humanity. What could be the impacts on the future of medicine? Imagine a future where the operating room, with its shiny instruments and bright lights, loses much of its function. A world where scalpels are replaced by regenerative therapies, where healing comes from within rather than from external sources. In this reality, a patient with a fractured leg wouldn't need casts, screws, or months of physical therapy. Instead, a simple cellular stimulus would allow the bone to rebuild itself, layer by layer, like a work of art created by the body itself. And for those facing the anguish of waiting for an organ transplant, the scenario would be even more revolutionary. No more waiting lists or uncertainty about timing. Hospitals known as battlegrounds against diseases would transform into centers of biological reprogramming. The idea of replacing a damaged heart with a grown heart from the patient's own cells would no longer be science fiction, but an accessible reality. Surgeries that currently take hours and require entire teams could be reduced to quick and effective regenerative therapies. Medical costs, often exorbitant and inaccessible to millions, would plummet, revolutionizing access to healthcare. And what about prosthetics? They could become memories of a time when we relied on external technology to fix our bodily shortcomings. Imagine a world where a lost limb begins to grow back, almost like a plant that resurges after being pruned. But this wouldn't stop at bones and muscles. Advances could promise to regenerate even complex organs like the liver, lungs, and perhaps even the brain. What would it be like for someone with Alzheimer's or a spinal cord injury to regain not only physical functions, but memories and skills that seemed lost forever? This new era of medicine would bring unimaginable power, but it would also raise profound questions. Who would have access to this technology? Would it be a universal right or a privilege reserved for a select few? how would we balance the promise of healing for all with the inevitable economic and political pressures that come with such revolutionary advancements? And what about ethical barriers? If we can regenerate entire organs, are we prepared to confront the philosophical and emotional issues of recreating essential parts of ourselves? Regeneration is not just a medical innovation. It is a revolution in how we see our bodies, our health, and our mortality. With it, the role of doctors would change, as would the very experience of being a patient. It wouldn't just be about extending life, but about redefining what it means to be healthy, whole, and human. And perhaps, at the heart of this transformation, medicine could become not just a field of healing, but a true bridge between science and hope. There is a profound duality in imagining a world where regeneration is possible. On one hand, it is a poetically beautiful vision, the freedom to overcome physical limitations, to erase scars that tether us to the past, to offer a new chance to those who have faced irreparable losses. Imagine the impact of this on the life of a child with a congenital disease, or on a survivor of an accident who finds in regeneration not just a physical solution, but the recovery of part of themselves. It would be an act of biological justice, a gift that would give people the opportunity to rewrite their destinies. But at the same time, there's a silent sadness in this idea. Our mortality, our limitations, and even our scars are part of what makes us human. They add depth to our experiences, urgency to our choices, and value to what we love. If everything could be repaired, would we still appreciate what we have? And what about the lessons that loss and pain teach us? Would the possibility of regeneration make us bolder and more resilient? Or, paradoxically, more carefree and insensitive? If regeneration became a reality, our world would be transformed. Stronger, more resilient, perhaps even bolder. But it would also face ethical and existential dilemmas that would force us to rethink our definition of humanity. Regeneration wouldn't just be a biological revolution. It would be a transformation in how we understand life, death, and the connections that bind us. We could recreate our bodies, but we would also need to reshape our vision of who we are and how we choose to use this power. Perhaps the greatest challenge isn't unlocking this ability, but deciding how it will shape us. As poet John Donne reminds us, no man is an island. And maybe, in healing our bodies, we could also heal our connections, regenerating not just limbs, but the bonds that make us human. Now we want to hear from you. What do you think about living in such a world? Would it be a liberating advancement or a change that distances us from our essence? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your reflections and continue this conversation about a future that, more than ever, is starting to seem possible.